Broadcasting live from Forsaken Crossroads on the plain of Arena, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody, to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham. Joining me is Cameron. And Nelson is off this week. But James is always here, but he's going to be on the microphone a little bit more this week. I think.
Heck yeah, let's go.
He tried to get on the microphone at one point last week to presumably correct us on something very important, but new audio routing, and he didn't quite have it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a show about Pokemon now, right?
Yes.
Cool. Great.
Accurate, yeah.
Also, Final Fantasy XIV.
All right.
Free up to level 60.
Fantastic.
The award-winning Heaven's Word expansion.
Oh, okay. I should write that down. Thank you. That's good to know. Before we get into it, lots to talk about. Holy moly. I'm glad this wasn't the news announcement that went up during Desert Bus Week. This is much to discuss. But before we do that, a reminder, of course, that the show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. They're great. Buy your cards there. Good prices. Great customer service. Very fast shipping. And you can tell them loading ready run sent me button, please, and they will give you a little 1-inch button, which currently says, I foretold you so. Possibly relevant to one of the cards we're going to be talking about today. Also, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, and we thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for also the comments on the new digs, the new setup here in Studio C, the Loading Ready Run Moonbase. It was nice to be back.
411 on What's Jiggy.
Yeah, and
Really.
it's really nice to be back in person and getting to, like, at least in person, when we talk over one another, it's not on like a slight delay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a little easier to respond and react and seed ground.
Yeah, so it's a big improvement, both for ourselves and for hopefully for you. I don't know if there's any sort of up or down benefit to the audio listeners, because of course, if you only subscribe to this as a podcast, hello, but there's nowhere for you to really like leave a comment. I guess fire us a tweet if you're on Twitter. If you're a podcast only listener, give us a tweet at Loading Ready Run, or me personally at Graham_LRR. Let me know if everything sounds good.
Yeah, I got my DMs open.
Yeah,
At Unarmed Oracle. Just slide on in.
Get in there. Before we get into the main topic this week, another thing to talk about from last week. We were talking about the secret layers, and we talked about the one for Arcane, and there were 4 cards in it. We were not to know that there were supposed to be 7. I think some people knew this. I don't know how they knew this, but 3 more cards for that particular secret layer got revealed. So just want to mention that now. So that's 7 cards for the $30, because better than 4 anyway. And so the new ones are Duress, which a couple content creators got to see with this. It's Jinx with the sort of shattered eye thing. So that's cool. Also Round 2, which is a flavor name for Seize the Day. So it's the 3 in a red, untap a creature. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase, then additional main phase. And then also another flavor reskin, Denting Blows, which is actually Croson Grip. So 2 and a green, split second, destroy artifact or enchantment.
If Sensei's Divining Top is giving you trouble, you must grip it.
I don't...
Sensei's Top.
That's the one.
You must grip it.
Yep.
Turn 4 Alpha Strike. You must cryptic.
Umazawa's Jite, crows and grip it. Now, the other thing about
you, Alex.
the Arcane Secret Lair is that myself in particular, we're critical of the artist credit, or rather lack of artist credit, because they're all just credited to Riot Games. Something else I was not to know last week is that the reason, and honestly, it's a perfectly fine reason now that I know, but the reason that these are not credited to individual artists is because there is no individual artist, because all the art on these cards is screenshots from the show. So, on the one hand, props to the animation team that they have made such a apparently gorgeous animated series that you could take a screenshot from it and put it on a Magic card. On the downside, the Magic cards are just screenshots of a cartoon, which many people have taken umbrage with, that they're not sort of like special art for this. They are just screenshots from the show. So it's like, yeah, all right. But my artist credit complaint, I rescind that and lodge a different, much smaller complaint.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I could have found these altars on DeviantArt. No,
Wow,
I don't
actually,
know.
though. Yeah. Oh, well. Anyway.
That's I'm being facetious.
People sometimes don't like subtlety. We have discovered over the many years of doing this. So let's start talking about something with a lot of subtlety.
Yep, nuance.
Yeah. Well, we do try. Again, we had a comment. We had a YouTube comment on an episode of Is This Your Card on the Stream VODs channel, because Wheeler's been playing Magic Arena. He's been doing the new player experience on Magic Arena, and there was someone commented, it's like, reminder, Loading Ready Run is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. And so I was like, yo, we're not.
No.
We're not. This is not sponsored by Wizards. They don't get to tell us what to say. We do work with them a lot, understandably.
Yeah.
I can appreciate why you might have that confusion, but we're very clear when a specific piece of content is sponsored by Wizards, and this one is not. And you'll see the reason, and I know I've said this before, I'm a broken record for longtime listeners of the show, but the reason that some people think that about this show is because we don't get that angry.
Yeah.
We're not like, everything is either awesome or terrible. We try to bring a lot of nuance to it, and it doesn't always work.
It's like a couple of years ago when I muted the word fetch land and the words fetch lands.
Fetch and land.
Along with
you miss out on all those Mean Girls memes.
Yeah, I know. It's a price I'm willing to pay. Along with the words hot take and unpopular opinion. Just not a lot of productive conversation happening.
Hot take. Lands are so fetch. I hope that's not an unpopular opinion. And then your mute filters cancel each other out and explode.
Yep. Well, see, you slipped right through because there's an option in Twitter where people you follow won't be muted.
Oh.
So I had to slam those buttons over. Just like firing the Death Star.
Yeah. I mean, I don't talk about like most of my Magic opinions on Twitter, specifically because I just don't have the time in the day.
Yeah.
And I have this. This is the platform for you to hear my opinions about Magic if you really want. And we can discuss in the comments if need be. Actually, hey, here's something way more fun. Another piece of Magic news pertinent to us specifically is that there was a big article about Unfinity.
Yes.
I totally forgot about that. People are so annoyed about Alchemy, I forgot about that they're annoyed for a different thing.
Yeah.
So
shout out to the Arena team. Thank you.
So Unfinity is the new unset. It's a new draft set. It's coming out in 2022.
April 1st.
I think.
Isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know. I think so. That sounds right. And there was an article about it from Mark Rosewater talking about a couple different things and showing off some of the cards. It was very exciting. It's I'll tell you right now, that's the first time that we've seen the cards in an actual card frame. I don't want to get too into the weeds because I don't know how into the weeds I'm allowed to get, but when we were doing, because a reminder, Cameron and I and Kathleen got to do creative text writing on Unfinity, which is super exciting. Creative text is names and flavor text. It's the text on the cards that isn't mechanically relevant, right? So you've got the design team, and they do all that, and then they commission the art and everything, and then it comes to a creative text team, which in this instance was Cameron, myself, Kathleen, Sean Baby.
Yeah.
Which was wild, if you're aware of who Sean Baby is.
Sean Baby, cool.
Yeah.
He was good at it.
He was amazing. This guy named Austin, who's like he's done flavor text on many sets.
Yeah.
And sort of all those people were in a pool under our supervisor for this, who was a gentleman by the name of Ari, who is also very funny. And, of course, Mark Rosewater, because Mark's on every team for the unsets. And so he was also doing flavor text and names and stuff. And so it was this big like comedy forge, which was tons of fun. So they've spoiled some cards. We can actually look at those in a moment, probably. He said, casually warning James. But the other thing that they talked about is something that I think Mark had mentioned to us. I was only sort of vaguely aware of it, and now getting to sort of see it, I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand what they were talking about, which is this unset. They're printing in black border, and it's like, wait a minute. Unsets are printed in silver border because silver border is where you put all the joke cards that you can't play in normal Magic. But what's happening this time is that all the cards in Unfinity are either going to be technically silver border, meaning that they will bear the mark of an acorn. There'll be an acorn logo. On commons and uncommons, it's just in the middle of the bottom of the card, and on rares, it'll be the holofoil stamp will be in the shape of an acorn because squirrels, right? And that basically means silver border. That is the new sort of designation for that. But other cards in the set will be playable in eternal formats, like Commander, for example. And I mean, I get it, because there have been times we were looking at what was the incredible Death Ray, whatever it was, the one that was like, well, no, because that one doesn't technically work because that one said it had trample. And now they figured out how to print that in black border. But often there are cards in unsets that are like, I don't see any reason you couldn't run this in black border. I don't think there's any reason that this couldn't just be printed as is in a black border set. And so they went, okay, let's do that. And I feel like there was probably like a very dull process reason that it couldn't just be printing half the set in black border and half in silver. Yeah. Probably. Like maybe something literally to do with like the sheets, like the printing sheet, or maybe it's just like maybe that they determined that would be more confusing. I don't know. People have not responded super well to that. Some people have. Frankly, I like it because I like the idea that you have navigated around that that interaction of the like, oh, I wish I could play this in my Commander deck because this is actually just funny and there's no reason that it doesn't. So the distinction is basically the Acorn cards, formerly Silver Border, are ones that are like things that care about like the letters in a card name or
the art.
Art. So here's one that they spoiled. Assembled Ensemble. 4 and a white for a star 6. Artifact creature, clown, robot, bard. Mwah. It's got vigilance. Assembled Ensemble's power is equal to the number of robots you control, and whenever you cast a spell with an artifact creature in its art, create a 1/1 white clown robot artifact creature token. So this one it cares about the art, which that's not something that regular Magic can do. So this has the little acorn stamp at the bottom, which you see, and so this is only going to be only playable in Silver Border Magic or in Acorn Magic, I guess. I think they're just calling it that. So all Silver Border cards previously are now Acorn Magic.
Okay, yeah.
This one, by the way, this card changed a bit from when we saw it because this one they determined in their like sort of last pass on the name and flavor text. I've checked that I can talk about this a little bit. They realized that it looked more like the group of robots because when we were suggesting names for this, it was the big one. Yeah, it was one robot.
Yeah.
And I think someone suggested like Doinkbot or the Ding-O-Matic or something like that, or
Tingbot.
Yeah, something like
that. It's got a little triangle.
It's playing the triangle, right? And so it was. We'll do at some point. We will do an episode where we go through, and I've cleared this. We will do an episode where we look at the cards and also talk about other suggestions that we had, Cameron and Kathleen and myself. We'll get Kathleen on the show as well for that. We'll talk about other suggestions that we had for the cards. So it's like, this card is called this. I had suggested this thing. And we'll talk a little bit about sort of the the creative process there, and I think
Yeah.
that'll be a blast. So obviously no nicknames episode for Infinity, but that'll be closer to.
I had a Borges joke for this card. It didn't get through. I couldn't keep it short enough. I also had a Borges joke for this card.
It's weird. Most of Cam's jokes were Borges related.
No, I was on a thing.
So they also spoiled a couple others. We saw Saw in Half. So this one is Eternal. So this is Saw in Half, 2 and a black, instant, destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of it, except their base power is half that creature's power and their base toughness is half that creature's toughness. Round up each time.
Gets into aristocrats.
Yeah. This was Kathleen's flavor text. The audience always loves it, but volunteers are divided. It's a very clean joke.
Yeah.
Someone discovered very quickly that with Dual Caster Mage, this card goes infinite. So that's fun. Briefly, the way that works, you target any creature with Saw in Half, flash in Dual Caster Mage, copy Saw in Half, targeting Dual Caster Mage. So that resolves. The Dual Caster Mage dies. You replace it with 2 1/1 Dual Caster Mages. Then you copy the Saw in Half and target the Dual Caster Mages, and it just boop, 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 boop. You can do that as long as you want, and make a functionally infinite number of Dual Caster Mages. And then I don't know.
Death triggers.
Yeah, sack them all to something. I don't know, give them all haste.
Or just have a blood artist out.
That'd be fun. Oh, yeah, right. That would also work really well. So, yeah, a lot of different varieties of things you can do with Dual Caster Mage. We also didn't know the rarities when we were working on these cards. Did you realize that?
I think there was like a C or a U or an R.
I have no memory of this. I don't know. Because I was like, oh, yeah, that is a rare. That's good that that's a rare. The other one, actually, there's Killer Cosplay. I was like, oh, that should be mythic. That's good that that's mythic. This one's fun. So it's single green mana for an artifact equipment. When Killer Cosplay becomes attached to a creature, choose a creature card name with an identical mana cost. Obviously, this is Acorn, because that's another thing you can't do in Black Border Magic. That creature becomes a copy of the card with the chosen name until Killer Cosplay becomes unattached from it, and equip 3. So you can equip this to Amon's Goblin Raiders and say that it's a Goblin Guide. What a bad example, Graham.
I mean, the art is a grizzly bear as
dressed up like a Lurgoyf. Yeah. So, yeah, he's wearing a little possibly a Tarmogoyf specifically costume. So here's a great example of collaborative flavor text. I suggested, Hank. I don't know why Hank, because I was imagining like someone being at like the fair, the Astrotorium, this sort of carnival. Hank, look, it's adorable. And then Mark Rosewater liked that and ran with it into, as you see it now, the Hans Run, get the camera, he's adorable. To attributed to Steffi, Bob's daughter, next words rather than last words, which I quite enjoy. I'm most proud of the other one that they spoiled, though, which is the Space Family Goblinson. I've always enjoyed goblin cards and the text on them, and I got to name a legendary goblin. My favorite part about this was, I think it was Austin, who I mentioned earlier, who I suggested Space Family Goblinson, and Austin just responded in all caps with Graham, because it's a very silly pun.
It is,
yeah.
but it works.
Yeah. It's 2 layers deep, too, because it's like the Space Family Robinson from Lost in Space, which is still relevant. It's on Netflix. There's a new series on Netflix currently. You was referencing the Swiss Family Robinson from the book The Swiss Family Robinson, I guess.
Yeah.
We're working on like 8 layers of irony here. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's a Sean Baby flavor text, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that does seem like a Sean Baby.
The goblin word for vacation translates roughly to a battered landscape of noise and violence. It's good. I poked my head in recently the list to remind myself of a few things and how it all went. I think I suggested something like, you can hear them long before they arrive and smell them long after they leave, or something like that. Anyway, I'm super excited for Infinity. I cannot wait to talk more about the process behind all these cards. But now we're going to talk about a different thing. So yesterday at time of recording. So we're responding to this as quickly as we can, and things could change. Who knows? They might. Things have changed before when people have made it clear that they're very not happy about a certain thing. Is that Wizards of the Coast announced Alchemy? And I'll explain what that is. They teased this ahead of time. They were like, big announcement for Arena, and they did the weekly MTG stream with Blake Rasmussen and oh gosh, I don't remember the other two people that were there. They were Arena designers, and they talked a bit about Alchemy, which is a new play mode on Arena. So here are the facts about it, and then we'll get into the weeds about a bunch of different stuff. So it is a standard format. So it's based on standard. It uses the cards that are in standard, and it rotates when standard rotates. So it's a digital mirror to standard. It is not replacing standard on Arena. Standard still exists on Arena, a one-to-one reflection of how it is on paper if you play with the physical cards. However, Alchemy includes 2 editions, or I guess 1.5 editions. It's got more digital-only cards. We talked about the digital-only cards a while back, and they introduced 10 of them with Jumpstart Horizons, and now there are 63 more coming, and 30 more with every standard set, they've said.
Okay.
And rebalanced cards. So cards that are in standard are being tweaked for Alchemy. Sort of like they're like a digital errata. They're being buffed or nerfed, essentially. I think of the 10 that they've shown, that they've said they're going to do, I think it's about even between buffs and nerfs. So they say once Alchemy launches, you can log on to Arena to receive automatically and at no cost to you 3 Alchemy boosters, 6 rare Alchemy individual card rewards, and 1 Alchemy mythic rare. So, and the way that card duplication works, this kind of confused me, was that each sort of cycle of Alchemy is tied to a specific set. So this one's tied to Crimson Vow. So if you buy a bunch of Alchemy boosters, you'll get Alchemy rares. And then once you collect all the Alchemy rares, then you will start getting Crimson Vow rares. Once you get all the Alchemy rares and all the Crimson Vow rares, then you will get the gems from duplicate protection if you get 4 of a rare. So
Okay.
that's
So you have to get the Alchemy versions of the cards separately.
I don't think that's not the Alchemy versions of the cards. That's like cards that are in Alchemy, because
Okay.
the 63
right, yes. Okay.
new cards.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
the rebalanced cards. Sorry, there's so much detail here. The rebalanced cards are different. I like this. If you have the card as printed, you also have the rebalanced card. Those are not separate.
Okay. Good.
So if you have, for an example, they changed Essica's Chariot. We'll talk about the specifics in a moment. If you already have 4 Essica's Chariot, you have 4 of either version. You don't have to collect them separately. So that's good. That would be real bad. This is coming down the pipe real fast. We're recording this on December 3rd. You're listening to this at earliest on Monday, the 6th. 4, 5, 6. Yes, I can count.
Okay, yeah.
And Alchemy is happening in 3 days from when you're hearing this. It launches on December 9th. So, yeah, here's a quick FAQ from the Wizards page. When does it launch? December 9th. We'll talk about the cards. So it's a digital-only format. You can play it in best of 1, best of 3, ranked and unranked, and it will feature in things like the Midweek Magic and the festival events. You can purchase Alchemy boosters for 1,000 gold, or 15 of them for 3,000 gems, the same price as standard set boosters. And a special Alchemy bundle containing 20 boosters will be available for 3,000 gems or 15,000 gold. Limit purchase 1 per player. And yeah, if you already have the cards, you have them. Right. How does duplicate protection work? When opening an Alchemy booster, it will prioritize the new to digital magic cards created for the current Alchemy set. If you've collected playsets of all of those, you will receive cards of the same rarity from the adjacent standard set, in this case Crimson Vow. If you are set complete for both Alchemy and the standard set, normal duplication protection rules apply. Which is, I don't like. I wish that it worked the same duplicate protection way, that like, because it's its own thing. It's like, but it's not its own set, right? Because they're rolling. So I see why they tied it to a set, because they're rolling out 30 new Alchemy cards for every standard set. But I get why you did it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think they could have been a little generous with this. Get butts in the seats.
I will say, broadly speaking, I'm perfectly fine with Alchemy existing. There's a huge asterisk that we'll talk about later. We have not forgotten. But before we get to that, sure.
Yeah.
There's we've talked before about, you have Arena and you have modes of play. You can only play on Arena. This happened on Magic Online as well. And so you've got modes of play. You can only play on paper, and you can only play on Magic Online. You can only play on Arena. Fundamentally, I don't have a problem with that, especially since actual standard is staying on Arena. I don't think it will cause the confusion that some critics are concerned that it will.
Yeah.
Again, there's a big asterisk that we'll talk about later. But broadly speaking, it's like, okay, sure.
I mean, this is an interesting play space to be in.
Yeah.
Right? Also, Hearthstone has been kind of doing this for years. In a vacuum, I kind of think this is interesting. I'm interested to see what Wizards does with the configurational space afforded to it by a digital product, where they can rebalance cards as they need to instead of having to ban them, or they can introduce cards that do things that can only really be done in digital.
Yeah. Right?
Like the RNG cards that we've seen. Right? In a vacuum, I like it.
Yeah.
Even.
Let's actually start talking about those. They've revealed some of the digital-only cards. So in Jumpstart Horizons, they did 10 of these. And it was ones like the Sarkhan that you conjure, was the keyword, a Shivan dragon into your hand. Or also Sarkhan made the cards in your hand, dragon cards that were already in your hand, cost less. But your opponent had no way of knowing if you had any dragon cards in your hand or how many you had, right? And things that you can only do digitally, where it's information that only one player knows, or making a card appear out of thin air, right? So that was kind of interesting. They've gone hard. So let's talk about this. So first up, we have Captain Eberhart, 1 and a white for a 1/1 legendary creature human soldier. He's got double strike, and spells cast from among cards you drew this turn cost 1 less to cast. Spells cast from among cards your opponents drew this turn cost 1 more to cast. This turn. Okay, so those are just a static ability.
Yeah.
So it just means that's just ongoing. It's just if I play this and pass the turn back to you, anything that was already in your hand when I cast him
is
fine.
Yep, but
anything you draw that
turn
is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
But if you hold that card until your next turn, it'll be in a normal cost again.
Yes. I mean, this is a really interesting hate
It's
bear.
super interesting.
I think this is kind of a cool card.
This is super interesting.
I mean, a very good example of the kind of thing that you can't really do in paper, right? Because even if you trust your opponent, right? And, I mean, you should be able to trust your opponent, to be honest. Some days I'm just like, I have no idea what I've actually drawn this turn.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I guess I could keep it in a separate pile, but, I assume there's game information being passed back and forth through some channel when that happens. I think this is neat.
Yeah, I think it's super neat. I mean, you can go back, if you so desire, to the episode where we talk about Jumpstart for sort of our broad philosophical feelings about the digital-only cards. But fundamentally, we're okay with them, right? I know not everyone agrees about that, but it's like, We're like, it's a thing you can only do on Arena. Why not? Why not explore that space? I think it's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally doesn't affect what you can play in paper. Again, there's this big historic asterisk looming, and we will get to it. But let's keep talking. Absorb Energy is next. 1 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Cards in your hand that share a type with that spell perpetually gain. The spell costs 1 less to cast. So if you counter a creature, any creatures you have in your hand at that time are 1 cheaper to cast.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
This is did they fix from Legends, best counter spell ever printed.
Oh,
Well, second best counter
Mana
spell.
Drain?
Mana Drain.
Yeah.
How could I forget about Mana Drain? Brain.
Absorb Energy, Mana Drain, very similarly similar names.
Energy absorbance. I don't know, but like
Power Suck.
yeah.
All right, next, Geist Channeler. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard. When Geist Channeler enters the battlefield, choose an instant or sorcery in your hand with mana value 3 or greater. It perpetually gains. The spell costs 2 less to cast. Now, don't forget, perpetually means even if you target something in your hand with flashback, flashback
Right,
is
the
an
flashback.
alternate cost. So that card perpetually getting that would make the flashback cost cheaper, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it should.
Neat.
It should. I would think that this would operate a lot like Goblin Electromancer
Yeah.
overall.
It's just card specific.
Yeah. And also this isn't altering its CMC its mana value.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I mean this is interesting. I like these cards. I think these are neat.
Yeah, I think these are super neat. This next one, Patient Zero. Look at this is I hadn't seen this one until this morning, and James put it up on screen before we were testing, and I did a loud swear because I was so surprised. So Patient Zero, 1 and a black for a 2/2 zombie. It's got lifelink, which is just a nice bonus because the rest of it says damage isn't removed from creatures your opponents control during cleanup steps. People have joked a lot about how these digital-only cards are the Hearthstoning of Magic Arena. This one is literally, no, only you are playing Hearthstone.
you are playing
I am still playing Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of similar to like creatures you control have
Yeah.
bad infect.
Or Wither, I guess.
Wither.
Yeah.
Wither.
But they still, the
They
punch.
maintain their power.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
neat.
Yeah.
Neat. I think this is neat.
Toralf's Disciple. This one's kind of ridiculous. 2 and a red for a 3/3 human warrior with haste. Whenever it attacks, Toralf's Disciple. So whenever it attacks, conjure 4 cards named Lightning Bolt into your library. Then shuffle. So we had conjure into your hand. But now you conjure, Cam's just seeing this for the first time, conjure into your library. Every time it attacks, I thought that was an ETB trigger. That means you attack, and now there's 4 bolts in your deck. If you get to untap and attack again, now there's 8 bolts in your deck. Eventually, your deck will be statistically all lightning bolts by volume.
So you cast Doomsday,
Yeah.
but you don't do anything good with it. And instead, afterwards, you cast this.
It's mill protection, too.
Yeah.
You just keep
yeah,
attacking
yeah.
with
Oh,
Toralf's
God,
Disciple,
yeah,
and you can't
it's
get milled
foul.
out. You keep adding 4 cards to your deck every turn. This card is stupid.
So yeah, you cast Doomsday, but instead of World Gorger Dragon and Animate Dead.
Oh boy! So this next one, I love. I love this because if you're like me, you immediately understand how this card's going to work. Ishkana Broodmother, 3 and a green for a 3/5 legendary spider with reach. Other spiders you control get +1/+2. For 1 and a Golgari, so 1 and a black or 1 and a green, and exile 2 cards from your graveyard. Draft a card from Ishkana Broodmother's spellbook. You want to know what the cards in Ishkana Broodmother's spellbook are?
I'm assuming there's going to be like a an encrust, but like a spider web.
No, they're all spiders. Well, actually, no, they're not all spiders, but they're all spider related. But the point is, you probably at home totally understand what that means, which is you pay this cost, and then you look at the spell book and you pick a card from it. Right? I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it'll be like the Davriel Planeswalker, where there was all of Davriel's terms and conditions.
Right.
But you got 3 of them at random. I actually missed, because I watched the presentation, I actually forget if drafting you only see some of the cards, but I'll just go through them real quick. Twin Silk Spider, Drider, Broodweaver, Glowstone Recluse, Knotvold Recluse, Hatchery Spider, oh goodness, Mammoth Spider, Netcaster Spider, Sentinel Spider, Snare Spinner, Sporecap Spider, Spidery Grasp, Spider Spawning, Prey Upon, and Arachnoform. So that's exciting.
One thing I do want to point out that I thought was really cute is it tells you to draft from the cards. There are 15 cards that you can draft from.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, it probably does give you the whole pack.
I would assume it gives you the whole pack because
good.
it's giving you 15 cards in a pack of draft. Yeah, I thought that was cute.
So
hadn't
this
seen
is kind
that.
of like, this is a wish on a stick
Yeah.
for a very particular sideboard.
Spider Wish.
Yeah, Spider Wish. I think this is cool.
Yeah.
I think this is
I
cool.
think these are all really cool. Begin Anew is next. Green, white, white. It's a Wrath in green. Well, with green. Destroy all creatures. Creature cards in your hand perpetually gain +1/+1. So it
Don't care for it.
might take you a while to build back, but when you do, your creatures will be bigger. Well, what about this one? Gitrog, Horror of Zava. It's a new Gitrog monster.
Okay, I'm here for it.
2 black green, 6/6 legendary frog horror with menace, because of course it is. At the beginning of each combat, if Gitrog, Horror of Zava, is untapped, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If they do, tap Gitrog, then seek a land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it perpetually gains black, green, and tap, and sacrifice this land, draw a card. That's any land, not just ones put on the
Yeah.
battlefield from that ability.
Yeah. Okay, then seek a land card. There's a word missing.
Basic?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't forget, seek is not tutor. Seek, you don't get to pick.
Right.
It's going to randomly give you a land card from your deck.
Uh-huh.
Seek is, I don't even think it drills down. I think it randomly takes something in your deck that satisfies the requirement. So yes, it can seek non-basics.
I like those odds.
Yeah. Field of the Dead, make it happen. Ominous Traveler is next. This, first of all, flavor-wise, this is great. Sorry, what's
Love
up?
the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
This is very like early or mid-90s Magic. This could be from Legends.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. I like these colors. Good work, Igor Kirilluk.
I love that it's 2 generic mana for a 1/1 human. It's colorless. It's just a creepy human. When Ominous Traveler enters the battlefield, draft a card from Ominous Traveler's spellbook. That card perpetually gains. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast the spell, and when you cast the spell, return a creature named Ominous Traveler you control to its owner's hand. Wow, that's powerful. Goodness gracious.
Oh, okay. Tell me about Ominous Traveler's spellbook.
It could be anything under that cloak. It could be Dominating Vampire, Vampire Socialite, Stromkirk Blood Thief, Falconwrath Pit Fighter, Wolfkin Outcast, Howlpack Piper, Tovalar, Dire Overlord, Patrician Geist, Shipwreck Sifters, Steelclad Spirit, Heron Blessed Geist, Archghoul of Thraben, Champion of the Perished, Headless Rider, and Blade Stitched Scob. You pull that cloak off, it could be a vampire, a werewolf, a ghost, a zombie.
Could it be something good? I would like it if it was something good.
Some of those cards are good.
I'm sure they are. None of them. Yeah, take it away. Take it away.
All right.
I don't want this one anymore.
The last one is where we're broadcasting from. It's Forsaken Crossroads. This one, I question this one to me does not fall under the camp of can only be done digitally. I think this one could absolutely be printed in paper. It's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color. When Forsaken Crossroads enters the battlefield, scry 1. If you weren't the starting player, you may untap Forsaken Crossroads instead. Tap to add 1 mana of the chosen color.
Oh.
This seems like it would be great in Commander, actually.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this. I don't think it's that difficult to keep track of who went first in the game.
Yeah, no.
But maybe, I don't know, if this drops on turn 8 and you're like, wait.
Who went first?
Did you go first this game?
I always remember who went first because it's something that I deeply resent. But not everyone's me.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That Traveler. When I said it felt like mid-90s magic, I didn't mean like this.
You didn't mean sort of the general, like, oh, that looks cool. What's it do? Oh. So those are just some. That's everything they've released right now. But there's going to be 63 new cards for Alchemy and on Arena that are digital only, and that will only exist on Arena. And then they said there's going to be 30 of them for every standard set coming out. So the next 30 will be when Kamigawa Neon Dynasty hits.
Okay.
That's all. That's still fine. I'm still fine with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where things start to get a little weird. Let's talk about the rebalanced cards. Now, you may remember, however, also have easily forgotten that they ran an event on Arena some months ago where they were like, it was like Oko's wacky trip through the looking glass or whatever it was called, where they took a handful of cards that were banned in Standard and rebalanced them, basically. So stuff like Oko and Uro and Nexus of Fate. I don't know if that was one of them. But anyway, they took a handful of cards and changed the wording on them so they weren't quite so broken, and was like, hey, for this event, you can play a standard deck, but you can also play these cards. You don't have to, but you can also play these cards that are altered in some way to make them a little less playable. And that event was very popular. And so that's now been sort of codified as part of this Alchemy format. So there are 10 cards, I think. So actually, well, here's what they say. Here, let me read you from Donald Smith's article. To foster an evolving metagame and to keep pace with the millions of games played on Magic Arena each day, we'll be regularly rebalancing cards in Alchemy. By the way, in the presentation that they gave on Weekly MTG, they said that last year there were over 1 billion games of Magic played on Arena. That's so much Magic. So they have a lot of data to work with.
Yeah.
So weakening cards, nerfs, will be the primary tool to affect the metagame. Nerfs will be aimed at cards and decks that have an outsized impact on the metagame, either through their own strength and win rate or by suppressing other strategies. The goal of nerfing cards is to allow more strategies to compete and interact with these cards, and we're hoping the nerfed cards will continue to be relevant and powerful options in the format. Strengthening cards, or buffs, will be, just in case you're unfamiliar with gaming terminology, which is fair, will be targeted at popular and highly played cards that are not part of the competitive metagame. Buffs have the goal of improving the experience and overall quality of life of playing these cards and are less likely to affect the competitive metagame. The first set of Alchemy buffs target single cards for a wide variety of strategies, but we will also look to buff multiple cards for a single strategy in future updates. We will not be rebalancing iconic cards that have a significant history behind them. Cards like Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Lotus Cobra, Thoughtseize, and Negate are powerful, but are often used as references and examples to evaluate new cards and abilities. Rebalancing them would be too disruptive to those conversations.
Okay.
I find that a very interesting caveat. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah. You do run into the thing where if you stop a new card from being able to be one of those touchstones if you rebalance it. But still, I thought that was interesting. We expect this philosophy to be updated and changed as we collect player feedback and data on the impact of these changes. So they talked in their presentation as well about one of the things that they looked at for cards that they've buffed is cards that were highly redeemed,
okay,
and also highly played, but that weren't putting up wins. Basically, cards that people want to be good.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That are like, people went out of their way to get them, and they're going out of their way to play them, but they're just not
performing.
They're just not performing. And it's like, that's interesting. I think that's really cool. That's not true for every one of them, but I think that's an interesting thing to look at, that it's like, people have used their wild cards to get these, but they're just kind of, maybe we can
just didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
I don't know.
I like that as a person who does that all the time. I'm like, oh, this card is sweet.
This card, it's good. I'm going to make it good. I'm going to play it.
Loses.
Yeah.
It just loses. I lose matches when I resolve this card.
So I appreciate that, as at least that being a pro-consumer move. So let's take a look at the rebalanced cards. Alrund's Epiphany.
Good.
Which we see here, obviously pretty powerful in standard. Let's just go right to the rebalanced version. So you'll notice immediately it's very clear that this is the rebalanced one, because they have the Mythic Arena icon in front of the name and where the holofoil stamp would be. So that's their like, yo, this is weird, by the way. And this one, so they've changed the foretell cost, so it's the same 7 mana as the upfront casting cost, and you only get the birds if you cast it from foretell.
Right.
So is that going to be enough to stop the oppression of Alrund's Epiphany? Who knows? But I think that's an interesting change. Essica's Chariot, they've changed it so you only get 1 cat instead of 2 cat tokens, which complete flavor failure. The whole point is that there's 2 cats. How dare you? But it also only takes 1 cat to crew now. So they changed it from 2 cats to 1 cat, and the crew from 4 to 2. Otherwise unchanged. Some of them are really small tweaks. Look at this. Look at Faceless Haven. Snowland, taps for colorless. For 3 snow mana, it becomes a 3/3 with vigilance and all creature types until end of turn. It's still a land. Previously, it became a 4/3.
Oh.
So it's just a little less brutal. It's able to be blocked by a few more creatures without those creatures dying. Interesting. Goldspan Dragon, largely the same mana cost. It's still a 4/4. It's got flying. It's got haste. Whenever it attacks, you create a treasure token. The treasure tokens tap for 2 mana of any one color. The only change is previously, whenever it became the target of a spell, you also created a treasure token. So that's now no longer there, because they were like, that's too much. Luminarch Aspirant. This is a big nerf if you're playing Aspirant in aggressive white-based decks. It's still a 1/1, it's still 1 and a white, but the +1/+1 counter that goes on target creature you control now happens at your end step, as opposed to the beginning of combat. So you still get it the turn you play the Aspirant, but you don't get to attack with it that turn. So you can't go 1-drop and then turn 2 Aspirant attack with your 1-drop as a 2/2.
Right. Yes.
So, like, I see why, but that's a big.
Yeah, that's going to affect. That's gonna hit some play patterns.
Yeah.
Harsh.
Now, the next one is actually banned in Standard.
Okay.
So it's Omnath, Locus of Creation. So it's 1 more generic mana to cast. Still the same color combination. So it's now 1 red, green, white, blue, rather than just red, green, white, blue. Still a 4/4. Previously, enter the battlefield, draw a card. Now enters the battlefield, scry 1. Significantly worse than draw a card. And I think that's it. Whenever a land has a battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn, if it's the second time, add red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. All of that is the same.
Why did Omnath draw a card?
Maybe it should have always been like this.
Why did Omnath ever draw a card?
Yeah.
Why does it get to scry? I guess the landfall wasn't good enough. It's like, why does Library of Alexandria tap for mana? I don't know.
So into some of the buffs now. Cosmos Elixir. At the beginning of it's still 4 mana. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life, and now you also scry 1. if you do the gain 2 life. So it's, instead of just gain 2 life, it's now gain 2 life and scry 1. So that's a nice bonus. Demi Lich, it's all exactly the same, but now it's a 4/4 instead of a 4/3. So lives through Bolt.
Yep.
The Highlander problem solved. This is, I can totally see this being like, man, I just want to play Demi Lich, and it keeps dying to
Everything.
3 mana to 3 damage spells.
This is like the classic card where your opponent resolves it, and you're like, oh yeah, that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I like that card. Kill it.
Yep. And then there's 2 of the class enchantments. They both have a very similar change. So Druid class, it's all the same except the level 3 upgrade is been changed to 2 and a green from 4 and a green. So it's a lot cheaper to get this up to level 3, which is the one that makes a land into a creature. And then Wizard class, same thing. And to get to level 3, instead of 4 and a blue, it's now 2 and a blue. So Wizard class is 1 mana and then 3 mana and then 3 mana, which is, again, that's pretty powerful. That's going to do a lot. And then last one, Phylath World Sculptor. It wasn't good enough, right? This was the fixed Avenger of Zendikar,
right?
And they fixed it too much. So it's 4 red green for a 5/5. Now it has trample, and the landfall trigger doesn't just put 4 counters on a target land and make it a creature. That land also gets trample until the end of that turn. So that sounds like a beating.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, actually.
Yeah.
God, I hope this leads to better paper magic. Right? Like, that their experience with being able to fine-tune standard gives them information to feed back into R&D.
Yeah.
And develop better paper magic over the next couple of years.
They've said, I don't recall where they said it. I think it might have been in that presentation, that like step 1 is still, don't make cards so busted that they need this. Like step 1 is still that.
Yeah, nobody likes having their cards banned.
Yeah. But going forward, this is more like it's more like making tweaks to Alchemy, right? It's like this is sort of irrelevant to standard now. Like, I agree with you, and I hope that that's true. And even they know that that's true, that they need to not make cards like Oko or Uro or stuff that is too powerful, or Omnath, right? But that's all for standard, which is not Alchemy. And they've said that like part of the philosophy of Alchemy is they're gonna keep twiddling the knobs, right? And that's just that's part of the buy-in to the format, is like, we're going to keep changing stuff around. So the problem, here's that big asterisk now crashing down to earth. The problem is the distinction that they've drawn is that standard is, I don't know if they actually have a term for it. Standard's a paper format, or standard is a I don't actually recall if they have a specific term for that. Alchemy is a live format. That's what they're calling it. So it's a live format. It can change. It uses the digital-only cards. It's on Arena. They've now decided that Historic is also a live format. And so what that means is the digital-only cards are in Historic, and some people who play Historic don't like that, and didn't like it when it was with Historic Horizons. They don't like it now. But at least even then, it was still the original sort of promise of Historic when it was introduced, is like everything on Arena is fair game in Historic, with with smaller asterisk, with some bans. But what that means is, Historic being a live format, is that it now will only use the rebalanced versions of cards.
Right.
And that's a problem that some people have.
Yeah,
and I can understand that, because it means that, like, it's like, hey, this is Historic. It's meant to be an eternal format. We can handle playing with an unchanged Alrund's Epiphany, right? We can deal with, I mean, maybe Omnath is a bad example because I think that one also got banned there, but like we can deal with Luminarch Aspirant in Historic, and now I can't play it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no wild card refund.
So
if you have Luminarch, if you have 4 Luminarch aspirants and they rebalance it, you're not getting wildcards for it because it's not they haven't banned the cards. You can still play the cards. The card just doesn't do
what it did,
the thing that it did when you paid the wildcards to get it in the first place.
It's like, the Davriel removal spell.
Davriel's Withering, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody was playing that because it was a fair removal spell.
No.
They were playing it to start loops.
Yeah.
Right? And so
when they changed that to target creature you don't control, that was a good change.
It was a good change and probably healthy for the format, but nobody spent wild cards on that card because it was a fair removal spell.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're just kind of out those cards. And maybe that's a bad example because maybe most people looked at people who played that deck and were like, good, I'm glad you're out of those wild cards.
Well, I mean, and it shouldn't matter why someone got a specific card, but it matters that they did. Right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that you don't get a wild card refund when some folks who don't play limited find themselves pinched on wild cards, and the fact that now there is no official format where you can play non-rebalanced cards.
Yeah.
Like there's once these rotate out of standard, is there any of these that aren't in standard? I'm trying to find a good example here. But like there's standard where you play the cards as printed, and then there's Alchemy and Historic where you play the rebalanced cards. There's no eternal format where you can, because this will also be the same, I assume, for, actually, I don't know the state of Brawl. I guess Brawl is a live format. I actually don't know. Brawl was introduced as a paper format, wasn't it? Yes, it was.
Honestly,
originally it was, but then the pandemic happened and I have lost all sense of time. Yeah, so it's that I understand, and that's been the biggest pushback. We're less than 24 hours out from this announcement at this moment in time. So, but that's the biggest pushback. I ran an informal poll that was very unscientific on the Loading Ready Run Discord. I asked the Magic channel. I was like, could you please react to this message with one of these 3 options? Let me actually find out my exact wording. But what I didn't ask and should have is whether or not you actually play Historic. So I said, I feel this activity hurts Historic and my enjoyment of it. I feel this is a benefit to Historic, or I absolutely do not give a crap. That last one won. So I assume that those people either don't play Historic or just like, it's fine, whatever. But at about 3-1 from the other votes was people saying that I feel like it actively hurts Historic and my enjoyment of it, which is definitely the sentiment in the other place that I was getting my data, which is the Magic and Magic Arena subreddits, understandably very upset.
Yeah,
which is why I was like, can I ask you people in the Discord? Because right now I'm only getting my information from Reddit and Twitter, and people are angry.
I understand that frustration,
and I think it's reasonable.
Yeah,
to be
I think
angry.
it's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Not getting refunds on wild cards is just, I don't know. That feels like really unnecessary feel bads.
Yeah.
Right. Like we nerfed your cards because we decided that we didn't like your deck winning.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe people wouldn't be as annoyed about this if the economy was better, right?
Yeah.
Like the economy on Arena is not great. Now, a lot of people are like, Arena needs a dusting system. And for people who are unaware of what that actually means, because people throw the word around like everyone knows what dusting means. Mm-hmm. I believe it comes from Hearthstone.
Yeah, I mean, where it was a loan word from World of Warcraft.
Right, of course, right. So it's basically you can take cards and just turn them into dust and then use that dust to buy other cards. You basically turn it into a wild card-like currency. Mm-hmm. Arena has a dusting system. It's just bad. Yeah. Like Arena has that. It's because on Hearthstone you could turn anything into dust, right? You could just turf your whole collection, and then if a card that you dusted then became playable and relevant, then you're like, oh crap! Now I have to get those cards back again. and someone was saying Legends of Runeterra does dusting after the first 4. Once you have a playset, then the dusting happens. That's what Arena does. That's what the Vault is. It's just not good payout.
Yes,
Right?
and also it doesn't recognize reprints of cards across 4 different sets.
That's also a problem. If you have 4 Duress from M20 and 4 Duress from M21, you have 8 Duress.
Yeah,
Technically,
just make it like an alternate art
style. Yeah,
Yeah. Come
also,
on. Come on.
that's another sort of big complaint is that, and we know, Cameron and I know, and most of you listening know that these are not the same departments.
No.
But it still looks bad when they're like, we have big announcements for Arena. Check this out. We've invented this new thing that's going to F up Historic and is going to just be this weird thing, when there are a lot of features for Arena that people have been desperately waiting for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like setting default basic land, getting to choose your card styles, like things like that are seemingly being ignored. Again, we know it's different teams, but clearly the management is prioritizing where they put the money, right? And I mean, even, I don't remember his name, but I think his first name was Ian. Even he in the presentation on Weekly MTG, like offhandedly, I don't think he meant to, but like offhandedly mentioned like within the time we had to do this. And it's like, how rushed was this? How, were you like up against it? Because I believe it, right? So just like the 2-to-1 wild cards thing, we can only hope that people make a big enough stink, and it's like, all right, look, if you have a place out of these cards and we rebalance it, that you're gonna get wild cards for it. But
in the time we had for this entirely new thing,
that
was a surprise
that nobody asked for.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's interesting. I kind of like the
and again,
Alchemy standard.
From that event, because I've seen people saying, like, nobody asked for this. True. Nobody wanted this. Not necessarily true, because that event that they ran with like the rebalanced Oko and Uro and stuff, that was very popular. People liked that, and I'm pretty sure that was a proof of concept for people going, look, people would be down with this kind of thing.
I mean, just to quickly jump in,
please.
the argument of nobody asked for this is just the worst argument in the world, because nobody asked for a lot of things, but that's how you get stuff.
You get new stuff.
That's why smart people give you good stuff. We wouldn't have smartphones if Steve Jobs didn't give us the iPhone, right? Like, of course you didn't ask for it, but you might enjoy it. Jesus.
Thanks, Steve.
When I was 3, I didn't ask for anyone to feed me asparagus, but they did, and it worked out, right? Like, I don't know. Sometimes it's okay to try new things, but like, if you're up,
I like asparagus, but it makes my pee smell weird.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Do you know? This is a brief aside, but I'm going to try desperately to make this analogy work somehow back to alchemy. The genetic quirk that makes asparagus cause your pee to smell weird, and the genetic quirk that lets you smell weird asparagus pee are different, and you don't have to have both of them. And we know this because of a former roommate of Kathleen who had one and not the other, and so was unaware that he was turning the bathroom into something that smelled like a burning tire dump.
Wow.
So this relates to alchemy because you can be aware of fixing one. No, I can't figure this out.
We can't square this circle. But on one hand, I like that they're, man, imagine if that was an evolutionary pressure. Right? At some point it was beneficial for humans to be able to detect when other humans had eaten asparagus.
What a weird thing.
Right? Like, for whatever reason, if somebody had eaten asparagus, it was going to impact your ability to reproduce. Possibly true. Okay. I don't know. Alchemy Standard seems interesting to me. I would like to try it out because I hate standard.
I think it's super cool, actually. I am in fact bullish on Alchemy. I think
Yeah.
I think it existing and being like this arena only standard, quasi standard thing that does not replace actual
Yes.
standard.
Yes.
I think is
Yes.
great.
The
The digital only cards, sure, why not?
yeah.
If you're messing about with it, go for it. Honestly, my biggest complaint, which I feel is most people's biggest complaints, is that it messes with historic in a way that I don't think it should.
yeah, I don't think it's really necessary. And I mean, there must have been some like there were clear options, right? Like, should the alchemy cards be in historic? Y/N. We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right. And is that coming from a philosophical place of like historic reflects the cards that are available in arena and in standard as an eternal format, and therefore the rebalanced alchemy cards are what is available. I can't conjugate. I can't.
However the conjugation
Yes.
works.
Yeah. However it works.
Yeah.
Right. Or is this what's best for the game?
Right.
Right. Or best for the format? Or do we have separate things? Which I think is probably the worst option.
Yeah, I feel like where that broke was historic is an arena only format
Yes.
by design, by
Yes.
by its origin.
And
so-
standard is not.
Yeah, and so if historic is arena only, then we are going to make it very arena. And if
Yes.
we're doing the rebalancing and digital only stuff on arena, then historic also has all of that.
Right.
And I understand. Like, the thing is, I'm not like, where did they come up with this? What a stupid idea. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. I understand that philosophy. That makes perfect sense. Because what was the third thing you said was
Separate cues.
right? The idea of you have alchemy, and then like or
alchemy
you have
historic.
Yeah, historic and alchemy historic, and then it's like I think that's I don't know. I think if you're going that route, then it should then rather than that, it should be like setting up a match on arena should be like setting up a game of Smash Brothers, where you're like, all right, what do we do? Okay, we're gonna play
No Jigglypuff.
We're gonna play stock. Like no healing items. No, right. So it's like, all right, hang on. What are we playing? We're gonna do historic, rebalanced. Yes, digital only. No, you have the full like granularity. But then it's like then you get into it. It's too fractious at that point, right?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
too many.
It's the Tower of Babel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think this decision was probably come to honestly.
The thing is, I think
And
I truly know
Yeah.
there's so much tinfoil hat and conspiracy stuff out there. I truly think most decisions Wizards makes are come to honestly.
I don't think they're trying to poison their own game.
No, I do think there is a lot of decisions that are based on money, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. That doesn't make them okay. That's not
Yes.
people are I hate that as a defense, right?
Yeah,
that
it's
it's like,
like,
well,
oh.
they're a company, so they're required to make money. That means they had to make this terrible decision. Like, well, no.
No.
F that. But I do think most of their decisions are like, no, well, we truly think this is going to be the best thing. What about these problems? Well, yes, we know that, but we do think this is the best way around it. And, but again, I think there's better ways to implement it about thinking out I also truly believe that they often have problems with thinking through every step in the process.
Yeah.
Or the fallout.
Yes. Like I mean, my thought on it would be the thing that I get into frequently, right? Where you've got this problem and you are focused on the problem and you are trying to solve the problem and you forget that anything outside the problem exists, right?
Yep.
And then you come up with a solution to your problem and you deploy it and you're like, oh, this doesn't actually work the way I hoped to because presumably they don't do that because they have teams of people. I don't know though, right? Like, this is me projecting.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how many people are involved in these decisions, but the I hope that they come to some sort of satisfactory conclusion, because I think that Arena and his existence is good and fine, and I completely understand and sympathize with the people who are like, well, now I'm not really interested in playing Historic anymore.
Yeah, because like these interesting, powerful cards that I really liked are not available, and I can't have confidence that any of the other cards that I think are powerful and interesting will continue to be so. So I don't know how to spend my wild cards, and I don't know how to deck build.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's going to eat the next banhammer.
Yeah, because they've talked about how they're planning on doing rebalances and tweaks to Alchemy frequently.
Yeah.
Meaning that will also be true of Historic.
Yeah, so also what are those balancing and tweaks based on? Probably standard.
Probably,
Right?
yeah.
Probably standard. So, it's just months ago there was that argument. There was a court case where one of the arguments was like, well, what is a video game?
Right.
And just watching all of game criticism Twitter react to that tweet about the arguments in the state courthouse being like, well, what's a video game? And they had to present an argument about what a video game was. And everyone is like, oh, we've been having this argument for 40 years. Just don't. And one of my mutuals was like, they're just speaking forbidden words of power inside this courtroom. And there's swaths of destruction just arcing outwards in every direction.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're rebalancing for standard, I mean, I guess most of these cards were probably balanced for standard to begin with, or they thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
But the fallout across other formats is going to be unpredictable, I feel. And maybe they are looking at it as well, when we nerf this in standard, what is the effect on historic? Because presumably they also have that information.
Yeah.
Right? They can pull those numbers, but they're going to have to prioritize somewhere.
And I don't know how the sort of breakdown is going to go between paper versus Alchemy, because Alchemy they can be like, oh, whatever, we'll just twiddle some dials, right? But doing a ban, because in paper your only option is a ban.
Yes.
Right? Historic even had that suspension thing where it's like, hey, you're gonna go on the bench for a bit. You're not banned, but we're watching you, and you can't play as many. So we'll see. And then they either take them off suspension or fully ban them. But in standard, it's like you can play everything in standard, or this card is banned.
Mm-hmm.
And is it gonna be like? I wonder if it's gonna be a situation of like, oh, this card's kind of hecking up standard. Hey, Alchemy team, you want to futz with it a bit? And then Alchemy's like, all right, well, what if we did this to it? And I was like, oh, no, that's still broken? Okay, well, guess we're going to ban that. I don't know what these conversations are going to look like. Presumably they will be having these conversations, but.
And I mean, when a ban comes through, there's usually an article talking pretty openly about why it was banned and what they had hoped would happen. And maybe they thought that the meta would adjust for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ways that maybe they thought that could happen, and then it didn't, right? So hopefully we see that same kind of transparency around rebalancing.
Yep.
Because it honestly seems like those articles are things people kind of enjoy writing because they're about the nuts and bolts of the game.
Yeah. I love reading those because it's like, what's your thought process here? And you read it and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. In a vacuum, I think it's all very interesting.
Yeah.
I would just have a really hard time justifying myself spending my wild cards on historic now.
Yeah.
Especially those mythic and rare ones where I'm like, is this going away and am I getting nothing in return?
We just need a better economy on Arena.
Yeah.
We need the vault's got to be more generous with wild cards, and certainly for this first batch, because it's such a surprise, I think that people should absolutely get wild cards if their stuff gets nerfed.
Whatever. It's a Alchemy standard. But if I was invested in historic,
yeah,
and yeah, I think I'd be annoyed by this. I'd be frustrated by this. Honestly, I think that's totally justifiable. I don't care for it.
Yeah,
and I understand it philosophically where the Arena team is coming from with this.
Mm-hmm.
But man, for this to just drop
yeah,
and be like, surprise,
it's next week. So, yeah. There's a bunch more cards sort of being spoiled over the course of today, and presumably over the whole week. So obviously, by the time you hear this, we'll be several days behind of the digital-only spoilers. So, just apologies that we can't be up to speed on that.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the initial thoughts. At least, anything else to add James?
Yeah, sure. This card,
Elrond's Epiphany.
his new name is AA Runs.
Aaron's Epiphany?
Okay,
That's
really good.
That's all I have.
That's really good. Wow, the Key and Peele from 2015. Blast from the past. Solid. No new secret layers dropped while we were...
While we were recording?
No, I don't think so. I think we're clear.
Good. Oh. All right, made it 1 week.
It's tough to... Yeah. All right, well, if you want to get your hands on some cards that do exist physically in the real world and they literally can't change the text on them because they are already printed, you can head over to Card Kingdom. Please do check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. That lets them know we sent you, and we do that because we think they're great. And let's play paper. Let's play paper more.
Yeah.
Also, everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Don't forget, we have a store also, store.loadingreadyrun.com. We sell like playmats and t-shirts and stuff over there. Good stuff. And that's going to do it for this week. So I've been Graham, joined by Cameron. And James is over there. And Heather gets these online. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. And yeah, appreciate it. Bye.